Here we go. Benjamin Akela, 150 yards, playing card. Woo! Hit it!
875. 875. 863. 870. 865.
Hey everybody, in this video I'm going to tell you how an unregulated air gun works. Featuring the Benjamin Akela in 22. You may or may not have seen my video on STKO reviewing this bullpup, but this is a prime example of how a unregulated air gun doesn't work out of the box. And the reason why I say that is because it does not have a curve, or did not have a curve, and I'm going to show you how I tuned it in this video. So, how does an unregulated air gun work? Well, if the valve and hammer are tuned pretty close out of the box, what happens is when you fill up to a certain pressure or fill up to the max pressure, your feet per second will be low and start out going up and then going back down. Or if it's really good, it'll be almost like a flat line and then it just drops off after so many shots. So what do I mean by that? Well, you know, like this rifle, for instance, they say it gets 60 shots. In reality, it doesn't. So let's just say, for the sake of it, 3 magazines, you know, the first 6 to 10 are going up in velocity, starting out at the highest pressure of 3,000 psi to fill it. And then they start to level out, get about the same velocity because the hammer and the valve are lining up in harmony. And then it starts to just go back down again into the 3rd magazine. Well, unfortunately, that's not how this rifle worked out for me. Like mentioned, straight out of the box, it did not want to do that. It did not want to have a curve with it. It just wanted to be a downward slope with the velocity. And what that results into is, if you're using the right pellet, you have a vertical stringing down range. Now, you're probably going to say, well, there can't be that much of a difference in velocity, or there has to be a big difference in velocity if you're getting a vertical stringing like that. Well, before, this gun on average was shooting about 3/4 of an inch group on average, again, at 50 yards. And that's the best I could ever squeeze out of it, no matter how much I tried with the way it was out of the box. Now, it's shooting really good, like between 3/8 of an inch to a 1/2 inch, center to center, at 50 yards. So that's because I tuned it. And how do you tune an unregulated air gun? That's the question. Well, there's 2 things about an unregulated air gun that makes them shoot good. It is the hammer spring tension and the amount of PSI in the air cylinder when the hammer hits the valve. So, why was this gun shooting like that with no curve in it? Well, that means that the hammer was obviously overpowering the valve if everything was going downhill. So again, with it vertical stringing out of the box, that means that the hammer was overpowering the valve. Every time it hit the valve, there was more air pressure per shot being used because the pressure in the air cylinder on the opposite end here was going down. So it is going to go down normally, but it's going down a lot because you're keeping that valve open longer. So with that said, being the hammer spring and this gun doing what it was doing, I took it out of the stock like so and backed out the hammer spring. And mine was set at 1.5 times inward, and I backed it all the way out, and that still did not give me a shot curve at all. It was a little more consistent, but it still was not enough to be a curve. It was just going down a less of a slope. The obvious is to start out at a higher pressure. That's right, you heard me right. And this gun it has a 3000 psi fill. A lot of people were saying that this hammer spring is too much for this gun on forums, and commented that on my STKO review video of this rifle, and stating that they were removing coils from the hammer spring. And let it be known, you take that gun apart and do that, according to the Crossman phone call I'm going to let you guys listen into, you're voiding your warranty, and you should not have to do that out of the box, ever. Now, adjusting it to your liking, trigger pull, transfer port, valve, whatever, external, all this and that's fine. But you should never have to do this to a gun out of the box. Even if it does cost $500-600, it doesn't matter the price. But anyways, back on topic here, because that is crazy to me that somebody would actually do that. But what I did is increase the pressure in the air cylinder. Instead of shooting at 3000 psi, because of the curve being going down, I upped the pressure to 3300 psi. So I want to show you the chronograph shot string that I took with my new FX pocket chronograph, guys. Full 3 mags, almost identical shots, not very much spread at all. I mean, it was insane. And then after that, you're going to hear a phone call with Crossman just to verify what I found out. Okay, so I'm going to show you an alternative fix to the Benjamin Akela. Again, a lot of people have mentioned to take the hammer spring out and remove coils. That is BS. You should not have to do that with a gun out of the box. It doesn't matter what brand, where it's made from. I'm sorry. You should not have to work on a gun like that. And it should be decently tuned, again, out of the box, in my opinion. Now, how to fix that? Well, fill it up past 3000 psi. I'm at like 3300 psi on the gauge here, shooting the 1589 H&Ns again, as stated. And I got my FX chrono over here. I'm going to load 12 more rounds up, and that is 1 hash mark behind the full power. Hammer spring is all the way out, and you can see I'm down to about 3000 psi right now, starting out at over 3300. Here we go, another 12 rounds. I'm going to load up another magazine. That is 24 shots already. And it is at a hair over 2,700 PSI. So here we go again, third 12 round mag. That's it. And now we are down to about 2,400 PSI on the gauge. So it is safe to say at least 2 magazines, really very good consistency shot per shot. And that was at about a 3,300 PSI fill. And now I'm gonna verify that with Benjamin just to make sure that this is safe, because if that hammer spring is too much in this gun, you'll never get a curve out of it, ever. It'll just be a straight slope or cliff.
Thank you for calling Velocity Outdoor, home of Crosman, Benjamin, Raven, Centerpoint, Gameface, and LaserMax brands. If you know your party's 4-digit extension, you may enter it at any time. To dial by name, press 1. For customer service, consumer sales, and technical support, press 2. For sales, press 3. For accounting, press 4.
You are at queue position 4 in the queue.
Crosman Customer Service, how can I help you?
Yes, I was calling to see if I could speak to somebody in the technical department about the Benjamin Akela 22.
You can. What can I help you with?
Well, I was calling because my Akela, for some odd reason, and I've heard it's common that the hammer spring is just too stiff or it's too strong for the valve in the airgun.
Okay. How so?
Well, I'm not
So
getting
yeah, go ahead.
I'm not getting a shot curve even at the highest fill pressure of 3,000 psi. And turning it down and, you know, unscrewing the hammer spring all the way out, which was only 1.5 times in on mine, and then turning the transfer port back and forth, down, you know, up and down, it still does not change anything. It lowers the velocity, but it doesn't get consistent like, you know, a shot curve where it stays the same number or so for a couple shots and then falls off. But mine just goes straight downhill from whatever number it starts out at to whatever number it ends on, and I don't go past 2,000 psi like the manual states.
You don't go past 2,000, so that's probably your issue. Oh, you mean when you're shooting? Okay, I thought you meant when you're filling, you're not going past 2,000.
No, okay. I fill it to 3,000.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So what kind of velocities are you getting?
On the highest power, let me read my chronograph data here. I just emailed it to myself actually right when you answered the phone call. So on the highest power, starting out with the 15.89 grain pellet, which I'm sure that I've tried slugs too, and a slug actually gave it a little bit of a curve, but not much. But on this chronograph data that I have, it started out at 912 and it just went downhill from there. There was no real consistency. It just kept dropping down. You know, there was probably 2 or 3 shots roughly the same, but usually on a gun like this, and I've had an actual crawl, you know, the consistency is really good with it.
Yeah, so usually how it works is, say
your average is 920 or so. You usually start at about 850 to 870 and slowly climb, and then you peak for a moment and then drop back off.
Yep.
So that is interesting.
I've been hearing on forums and stuff, because I made a video with it on my YouTube channel, and a lot of people claimed that they went inside the gun and cut a couple coils out of the hammer spring, which you should not have to do that out of a gun, you know, being brand new.
And I'm not sure that would fix the issue, because the tension on the spring is still going to be the same.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not going to do it, but I was calling.
I would not do that.
Yeah, I was calling because what I figured out, and like you just stated how an actual unregulated air gun works, that's how an unregulated air gun works. You have basically a bell curve, or a pretty slim line, straight curve till it starts falling off. Mm-hmm. I wanted to know, because I've already done it, and I didn't do the coil spring. I'm not messing with the internals of the gun, but I aired mine up to 3,300 psi, and I got the flattest curve I've ever seen in an unregulated gun.
Really?
Like, I could read through the date on that also.
Yeah, sure, why not?
All right, here we go. Let's see, was that today? Okay. So, same pellet. I got the transfer port turned down one notch, which that has nothing to do with the spring and the valve. That's just the volume of air, right?
Right.
Okay. So, starting off, I started at 863. It went up to about 870 on the 5th, 6th shot, and then stayed about 865. Went down to 863. Went back up to 870 again. I mean, so the whole shot curve started. I mean, I wouldn't say low. It's flat. It's super flat. Like
yeah, that sounds like a normal shot curve to me.
Right, and this is the total number of shots. I did 3 magazines, 36 shots, a low of 854, a high of 875, a standard deviation of 5.4 feet per second per shot, and a 21 feet per second spread, which that is incredible for an unregulated gun.
Yeah, that is solid. Well, it's not going to hurt the gun filling it to 3,300. It's still safe. Whether you feel comfortable doing that every time you fill it to get a more steady curve is up to you, but I think that it's odd, though, that when you fill it only to 3,000, it's giving you much different results. It really shouldn't.
Well, the thing is, yeah, it should not, but at the same time, I mean, it depends on how strong that spring is. Again, like if that spring, I don't know how, like, I don't know if you guys put the guns together at your facility or they already came.
We don't.
Okay. So, again, like I said, some people were saying that the spring was too stiff, but if you sit there and aired the cylinder up over 3,000 psi, that's timing the valve more correctly than trying to put less air in it, and that hammer is overpowering the valve.
Right.
Excuse me.
Well, you could do one of two things. You could either continue filling it to 3,300 if you feel comfortable doing that, or we could get the gun in and get it looked at and see what's going on with that. Okay.
I mean, I'm fine with it. It's just that's what I wanted to say. Well, as you heard a little excerpt of my phone call with Crossman there, and they claim that it is safe to air this up at the pressure that I was airing it up to and getting the great results. They clarified that that was fine, but they also said that nobody's ever had an issue with these rifles, stating that the hammer spring was too much. So I don't know what the deal is going on with other people's rifles, but that, in my eyes, it's plain stupidity for not reporting it to the manufacturer and tearing down the gun to remove coils from the hammer spring to make it shoot better at a 3,000 psi fill, when you could have just went to a 3,300 psi fill and got the flattest curve ever out of the gun and voided your 5-year warranty. So again, I don't know what the deal is, but Crossman took my information just so if they hear any more about this issue, they're going to contact me and let me know about it and if anything was found in the factory, because these guns are not made here. They're made over in Turkey and imported here. So Crosman really does no touching to this rifle. But anyways, I hope you figured out how an unregulated air gun works in this video. Again, you get a nice shot curve. And lastly, with an unregulated gun, the problem is downrange, your groups will shift because of the different pressures the hammer is hitting the valve at. You know, a pellet going 875 feet per second at 3,000 PSI versus 875 feet per second at 2,400 PSI is different, way different. So what's going to happen is your groups, if you're shooting for groups, your groups are going to shift all over your target at different pressures. And that's why I stated clearly that this rifle is not made for precision, because the air is not regulated. Now, it is very accurate. It's just not precise. That's the problem. So again, now with the tune that it's at now, again, I'm capable of shooting those little bit smaller groups, but again, they're going to shift because of the different pressure and volume that the hammer releases by hitting the valve at the different PSI settings on the gauge. So you have to take notes on that if you really want to tune this gun in to be very precise. So other than that, like I stated before, this gun is set up for hunting, pesting, and backyard plinking and such. But it is not that precise when I've had previous rifles and an actual crawl shoot way better than this out of the box. No joke. So, you know, again, but now that it's tuned, it shoots pretty good. I'll give them that. But I shouldn't have had to gone that far with it. I shouldn't have had to take that much time and effort put into it to get it to shoot that good out of the box. Like mentioned before, even Crosman agrees with me that the guns should shoot decent out of the box and not like this one. So anyways, I'm going to leave you guys at that, and I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you got something out of it. As always, catch you on the next one. Thanks again.